Nationally syndicated radio host Dennis Prager shared a clip exclusively with Breitbart News of his upcoming film, No Safe Spaces, a documentary detailing the ongoing assault on the First Amendment on college campuses across the country and how identity politics enables it. In the flashback scene, an actor playing a 21-year-old Dennis Prager is seen singing to keep himself sane while sitting in a Moscow hotel. In order to keep myself sane, I would make myself laugh or do silly things. So in my Moscow hotel, which I knew was bugged, and how did I know? It's very simple. They didn't allow any Soviet citizen to stay in the same hotel as a Westerner. And everybody knew, including Soviet citizens, they were bugged, Prager narrates during the scene. No Safe Spaces features footage of Prager and Carol's cross-country tour of college campuses where they dove deep into the root causes and the fallout from decades of politically motivated censorship at an array of universities. The pair argue that an entire generation of minds on these campuses have been taught to eschew alternative opinions and despise debate. In an interview with Breitbart News, Prager offered details about the exclusive clip from his upcoming movie, Carol's motivation to join the project, how political correctness has made comedians like Jerry Seinfeld avoid doing stand-up comedy on college campuses, and why only conservatives are in the fight to eradicate censorship from big tech firms to the universities. Where does this depiction of him in the Moscow hotel room fall in the context of the film and this time in his life? It was September 1969, and I had just turned 21 years old. Israel sent me into the Soviet Union to smuggle in Jewish religious items and smuggle out names of Jews who wanted to leave. You describe everyone in Moscow knowing everyone, especially Westerners, were bugged. Doesn't that seem to be the way America's universities are headed? America's universities have no need to bug anyone. There are so few dissidents, most academics are sheep, why bother? And the threat is overt, public conservative speech, not covert. So bugging is unnecessary, stifling is. This project seems to be a real bridge between your efforts in education at Prager and Hollywood, with Adam Carolla. The Prager side makes sense, but what do you think made Adam Carolla want to be a part of this project? Adam Carolla has two of the rarest human traits, common sense and courage. That's why. He was the ideal partner with whom to make this film. An Asian student group at Columbia kicked an Indian Saturday Night Live writer off stage for telling Asian jokes. Do comics like Adam Carolla have any place on campus? In fact, there is a scene in the film with Adam talking to fellow comedians about the challenge of doing comedy on a campus today. Many comedians, such as Jerry Seinfeld, have said they will not appear on college campuses. Why would they? Comedy necessitates a certain irreverence and requires an audience people to be able to take good-natured digs at them and or their groups. Can either big tech censorship or campus censorship be fixed? Prager is fighting on both fronts. It cannot be fixed, only be defeated. And that can only happen if the left is defeated. There is a battle for liberty and for the soul of America in which the left is fighting against both liberalism and conservatism. Tragically, however, only conservatives are fighting the left. Liberals are either too naive, too cowardly, or too brainwashed into believing their enemy is conservatism to fight for free speech and for America. No Safe Spaces also includes commentary from a variety of Hollywood actors, scholars, academics, political figures, and media members, including Vince Jones, Alan Dershowitz, Jordan Peterson, Dave Rubin, Cornel West, and Tim Allen. The film is slated for release in fall 2019. ABC's The View co-hosts Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar were censored in the first two segments of their daytime talk show on Tuesday amid tirades about President Donald Trump. Following the break, Behar launched into a discussion about the president's strategy to court African American voters by highlighting former Vice President Joe Biden's leading the passage of the 1994 crime bill. Behar pointed out that then New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani supported the bill, while President Trump purchased full-page ads in the New York Times calling for Central Park 5, a group of teenagers who were wrongfully convicted of raping a woman, to receive the death penalty. Black people know about Charlottesville, said Behar. And they know about him saying these are censored countries. And all the racism, and all of the stuff that he says. They know about it, I'm sure. While the View co-host's mouth was pixelated, it appears she made a reference to President Trump's use of the term shithole countries. Behar then motioned to the control room before saying, "You can bleep that." In a statement to Business Insider, an ABC spokesperson said the bleep button is controlled by the cable network's Department of Broadcast Standards and Practices. BSNP makes the decision, and when we previously discussed the topic, it was bleeped as well, said ABC spokeswoman Lori Hogan. Both hosts have repeatedly made headlines for their criticism of the president. Last week, Beher raised eyebrows when she said congressional Republicans should be jailed for backing a corrupt president and his corrupt administration. Golden State Warriors head coach Steve Kerr describes the gun control movement as his movement. He is quoted in an op-ed in The Hill saying, "My movement is the gun control and gun safety measures." He then claimed that over 90% of Americans want universal background checks, a move which would criminalize a citizen for selling a 5-shot revolver to his lifelong neighbor, unless that neighbor receives government permission via background check. Kerr did not mention that the two most recent high-profile shootings in America occurred in states with universal background checks. The April 27, 2019, Poway synagogue attack occurred in California, which has had universal background checks since the early 1990s. The May 7, STEM School Highlands Ranch shooting occurred in Colorado, which has had universal background checks since 2013. Illinois has a de facto universal background check system, as it is illegal for state residents to possess or purchase a firearm without first obtaining a firearm owner's identification, FOID, card. That acquisition of that card involves a background check, only after which guns can legally be purchased. This did not stop the February 15, 2019, shooting at Henry Pratt Company, wherein 5 innocents were killed. Even without the above-listed examples, and there are myriad more, nearly every mass shooter in the last 10 years acquired his guns via background check. The exceptions are those who stole their guns. So expanding background checks to more points of sale, thereby making them more frequent, would have done nothing to prevent any of the mass shootings of the last decade. Former FBI Director James Comey wrote an op-ed on Tuesday denying the FBI ever spied on President Trump's campaign in 2016 and claiming it was just good people trying to figure out what was true, under unprecedented circumstances. But go ahead, investigate the investigators, if you must. When those investigations are over, they will find the work was done appropriately and focused only on discerning the truth of very serious allegations. There was no corruption. There was no treason. There was no attempted coup. Those are lies, and dumb lies at that. There were just good people trying to figure out what was true, under unprecedented circumstances. His defense is coming as Attorney General William Barr is reviewing the origins of the FBI's investigation into the Trump campaign and ahead of a Justice Department Inspector General report that is expected to be concluded next month into whether there was FBI bias in its investigation. Barr has said he has found answers to his questions to be inadequate, leaving him with more questions. He has also said the answers did not hang together. He has appointed the U.S. Attorney of Connecticut John Durham, a prosecutor experienced with government corruption, to lead the investigation into the FBI. In his op-ed, Comey called Trump a liar who is harming vital institutions. "We must call out his lies that the FBI was corrupt and committed treason, that we spied on the Trump campaign, and tried to defeat Donald Trump. We must constantly return to the stubborn facts," he wrote. He claimed that the investigation was warranted after the FBI saw the first Russian attack on the Democratic National Committee's servers starting in mid-June 2006, and an allied ambassador in late July told the FBI that months earlier, former Trump campaign advisor George Papadopoulos knew about the Russian effort to release dirt on Hillary Clinton in the form of emails as early as April 2016. Comey did not mention in his op-ed that the allied ambassador, Australian diplomat Alexander Downer, has since said in interviews that Papadopoulos never mentioned emails to him and has also said there was no suggestion of any collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. Specifically, Downer told Sky News there was no suggestion that there was collusion between Donald Trump or Donald Trump's campaign and the Russians. Nevertheless, Comey claimed in his op-ed that the information from Downer in late July led them to believe that the Trump campaign might be conspiring with Russians. He wrote, "But when we finally learned of it in late July, what should the FBI have done? Let it go? Go tell the Trump campaign? Tell the press? No. Investigate, to see what the facts were. We didn't know what was true. Maybe there was nothing to it, or maybe Americans were actively conspiring with the Russians. To find out, the FBI would live up to its name and investigate. As director, I was determined that the work would be done carefully, professionally and discreetly. We were just starting. If there was nothing to it, we didn't want to smear Americans. If there was something to it, we didn't want to let corrupt Americans know we were onto them. So, we kept it secret. That's how the FBI approaches all counterintelligence cases. Comey also claimed that if the FBI were really against Trump, they would have leaked the existence of their investigation into his campaign in order to embarrass him, despite it being against FBI policy to confirm the existence of any investigation. Comey asserted that if FBI Supervisor Peter Strzok wanted to stop him, he could have leaked it to the media. Comey did not mention the many text messages Strzok exchanged with his lover and then colleague, FBI lawyer Lisa Page, disparaging Trump and his supporters, or Strzok's mention of an insurance policy. We investigated. We didn't gather information about the campaign strategy. We didn't spy on anyone's campaign. We investigated to see whether it was true that Americans associated with the campaign had taken the Russians up on any offer of help, Comey wrote. Comey did not mention any evidence other than Papadopoulos's meeting with Downer for supporting the idea there was collusion, although it is now publicly known that a lawyer for the DNC and the Clinton campaign hired Fusion GPS to conduct anti-Trump opposition research. Fusion GPS hired ex-British spy Christopher Steele, who produced a dossier claiming that the Trump campaign was colluding with Russia. Comey did not mention the dossier, which was used to get the surveillance warrant from the surveillance court without disclosing who was behind the effort, at all in his op-ed. Comey wrote, again, without citing the dossier, that FBI investigators thought they had probable cause to get a surveillance warrant on former campaign advisor Carter Page, whom the dossier claimed was part of the collusion scheme. Page was no longer with the campaign, but there was reason to believe he was acting as an agent of the Russian government, Comey wrote. He again asserted that if the FBI wanted to harm Trump, they would have leaked the investigation. He then cited as evidence that he was not biased against Trump his decision to announce that he was reopening the email investigation into Clinton after investigators found her emails on Anthony Weiner's laptop. However, he later wrote in a book that he assumed Clinton would win and did not want to undermine her election if it came out later that the investigation was reopened. He wrote in his book, assuming, as nearly everyone did, that Hillary Clinton would be elected President of the United States in less than 2 weeks, what would happen to the FBI, the Justice Department or her own presidency if it later was revealed, after the fact, that she still was the subject of an FBI investigation. Comey also cited as evidence that the FBI was not biased against Trump former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe's leak in late October 2016 that the FBI was actively investigating the Clinton Foundation, which he said was harmful to Clinton. But a DOJ report later found that McCabe approved the leak to rebut a narrative that he was giving Clinton special treatment in light of a Clinton ally's donation to his wife's campaign. Comey called media outlets who are reporting on potential FBI wrongdoing fringe, and claimed the FBI was just doing its job. The FBI wasn't out to get Donald Trump. It also wasn't out to get Hillary Clinton. It was out to do its best to investigate serious matters while walking through a vicious political minefield, he wrote. Representative Maxine Waters, DCA, one of Congress's loudest and consistent voices advocating impeachment, is ratcheting up her criticism of President Donald Trump after he mocked former Vice President Joe Biden during a recent visit to Japan. Over Memorial Day weekend, President Trump insulted Biden after North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un referred to the leading 2020 Democratic presidential candidate as a fool of low IQ. I have confidence that Chairman Kim will keep his promise to me, and also smiled when he called Swampman Joe Biden a low IQ individual, and worse, the president wrote in a since-deleted tweet. On Tuesday, Waters fired off a trio of tweets denouncing President Trump's comments, referring to him as an un-American traitor and porn star fornicator who should resign rather than face impeachment proceedings. Trump is an embarrassing un-American traitor. Waters began. How dare he denounce and belittle VP Biden on foreign soil on Memorial Day? How can these spineless Republicans look their spouses and children in the face and claim to teach them patriotism? Waters concluded her tweet storm urging President Trump to oust himself from the White House before Congress takes matters into their own hands. Low-life Trump, lying, crooked, tax evader, porn star fornicator, should take his ridiculous self home, resign, and free us of what we will have to do to impeach him and throw him out of office. Hours earlier, the Biden campaign issued a statement blasting President Trump for his comments, accusing him of embracing autocrats at the expense of U.S. institutions. To be on foreign soil, on Memorial Day, and to side repeatedly with a murderous dictator against a fellow American and former vice president speaks for itself, said Deputy Campaign Manager Kate Bedingfield. and it's part of a pattern of embracing autocrats at the expense of our institutions, whether taking Putin's word at face value in Helsinki or exchanging love letters with Kim Jong-un. Biden himself has a history of criticizing President Trump while abroad, describing the state of U.S. policies under Trump as an embarrassment while speaking before foreign policy leaders in Munich, in February. While I cannot speak today as an elected government official who is able to set policy, I can speak as a citizen. I can offer insight into my country. I know we've heard a lot today about leadership, but in my experience, leadership only exists if somebody, and others, are with you. Leadership in the absence of people who are with you is not leadership, the former vice president said.